Welcome to our video newsletter. I'm your host, Antonio Fritzi. I'm the Director of Continuing Education at Albright School of Theology. And Continuing Education offers a variety of courses, seminars, and workshops designed to foster personal, professional, and spiritual growth for both ministers and laity. Today, we're going to take a very special look at one of our upcoming workshops. Joining me is Tina Karagulian, the facilitator of Art and Prayer, Spiritual Connection Through Collage. In this interview, Tina and I are going to dive into the inspiration behind the workshop, what participants can expect, and how this series can help you reconnect with your inner creativity and spiritual journey. Let's jump in and discover more about this exciting opportunity. So good morning, Tina. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for being willing to join us. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to talk about your upcoming 8-week series on art and prayer. I understand it blends collage, meditation, spiritual practices, and I know our audience is eager to dive into what makes that experience so special. So I'd really love to start with a bit of your background. And what brought you to this work, right? I understand that you have a pretty interesting background. So if you could share that and speak to what sparked this idea for the workshop.
Well, first of all, I've always been an artist, drawing as a little child. And I think that was a very meditative, quiet space where I would connect to my inner self, or my way of connecting with spirit was very nourishing for me. So that was always there. It kind of came and went, in different incarnations over the years. And then I studied counseling, got a degree early on, got a master's degree. And as I was studying, I ended up working with one of the foremost art therapy kind of teachers that I didn't know he was like one of the biggest things. And I started doing some art therapy client, a young client who went from a very frozen types of images, this young child, to being much more alive over the year of working with her. And that was kind of the very start of just mixing it as a way of service, right? Using art as a way of service. But I always felt like the spiritual piece wanted to come in. And so I studied spiritual direction and so I was always trying to find ways to mix the two, and I didn't know how. And what occurred to me late last evening, just thinking about it, was I was then at the Episcopal Church for a while, and one of the kind of your position in the church, she had recommended that I be one of the facilitators for this big Christian conference in San Antonio. And at that point, I was doing some of collage, but I was very laid back with it. I really didn't make sure I wasn't imposing on the process. So this is like this tension between, I'm not an art teacher teaching you a technique. I don't want to be so step by step and formulaic that one is not going inward. So there was just maybe I just want to get out of the way. And there was a man who was in charge of this whole conference who I remember him saying, "This is what you need to do, Tina." And I felt like it was more than just him talking. I felt like it was God talking through him. It was a spiritual thing. It was like, here's your format. You need to give a talk or some kind of a teaching. And I'm like going, I hadn't done that before. And so that developed the structure of this series that I've been doing for the last 7 years through Oblique. So it was a very intuitive process. And I remember after teaching that or holding space for, or more facilitating that, it was like magic. And I was like, God, I want to do more of this. Like something clicked all of those pieces that I've been trying to bring together. Much like a collage, right? I see everything like a collage. And, it's like the metaphor goes many different ways. So I was like, wow, it's all coming together somehow. And it felt like magic. And it has been. Every time I teach, it's magic.
Speaking of this kind of direction that you found and this calling to facilitate that experience, I'm hearing that spirit of facilitation is really open to receiving what students bring to that workshop, right? So I'm curious if you could speak a little more to, you know, what might participants expect, right? Do I need to be a really experienced artist coming into this?
At
What
all,
can
not at
I,
all.
bring to this
Actually,
experience?
the people who often say, I'm not an artist, are the ones that should come. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
um, it, a lot of times our creativity got squashed early on by a bad experience, which is really sad. And so I think this class series often heals a piece of that and often opens the door to some inner possibility. And it could be, I'm starting to like make wonderful chef creations in the kitchen. I mean, I don't care how it gets, but it's opening the valve for it. So collage is almost like it doesn't matter. It's just, what's great about collage is the pictures are already created. You don't have to worry about starting from scratch and drawing it, right? And that frees up a lot. One writer once who came early on, she had this look on her face like, I don't know why I'm here. This is just not my cup of tea. I'm not even an artist. And then by the time the 8 weeks was over, her writing flourished because it opened a different valve into the creativity. And she used her natural gift of writing to just take it from there. And she ended up taking my class more than any student over the years. Like I think she had 4 or 5 in a row. She just, and then I could see her progression of her inner growth and her creativity over that time, which was just lovely.
Mm.
So it doesn't, whatever your creative bent is, are you a writer? Are you a poet? Are you an artist? Are you just a crafty person?
Mm.
And somehow you're not inspired. Sometimes in the spiritual journey, we talk about the dryness, right, in the spiritual world, right? And I had studied that and I felt the validity of it where the message is often don't do anything.
Mm.
Right? There is some truth in that, right? That God is transforming you from the inside, but there's also good to have some prompts to maybe a few steps that might open that dryness into a new redirection. And
Mm.
so this is how they marry really well together, you know. So it doesn't matter. Maybe you're the kind of person that I'm feeling some spiritual dryness. Maybe my creativity isn't quite up to snuff. This will definitely open you in some way.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that really addresses this kind of blend of creativity and spirituality. And I think what I'm hearing is that for individuals who perhaps feel a little stagnant, perhaps feel a little stuck, or are simply looking for a new avenue through which they might delve into the spiritual experience of God, of the divine, of their relationship to ultimate meaning, right? This kind of creative workshop is an opportunity for them to explore that new avenue, right?
And you don't even have to have a spiritual path.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I think it's inherent in us, right? You don't have to name it, right? And those who are more contemplative know that
Mm.
there's a place that goes beyond the senses and even beyond the vision, that
Mm.
something deeper happens. And this is definitely what I see that happen in the class, where you go beyond the form and then you come back and the form comes, right? Which is
Mm.
usually what happens with us when we get redirected in our lives to a new season and you suddenly are doing something new. But there is this time inwardly of playing in the form, right? Or
Mm.
beyond the form, right? So you can go beyond the senses, you can go in the senses. It's unlimited how you can get there, I guess is what it is. This is just another way in. We often
Right.
have in spiritual traditions Lectio Divina, where you're reciting spiritual words, or
Mm.
even chanting in some traditions of some holy songs and mantra. This is a visual way, although I include music because I don't want to leave anything out, right?
Right.
So we've got music, we've got art, and I have prompts for those who are more left brain and need to go in that way. And then there's some people who are like, I don't even want to look at the handout. I'm not even going to listen to Tina for part of it because their inner process is taking over. And I'm doing that. Like, so
Right.
I'm wanting the right brain people to maybe later on they'll look at the journal questions, maybe this is more of an internal creative experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm holding space for both.
Mm.
So
Yeah. And it sounds like, I mean, I really love what you said, that this is something, this kind of experience is inherent to us as human beings, right? Despite
yeah,
our perceived differences in spiritual paths or where we're coming from, right? This touches kind of something that's very basic to us as human beings. And you also mentioned, right, you have some, kind of repeat retreatants or
yes, I
registrants,
have
right?
over the
People who
years,
come
which
back.
has been beautiful. I love
Yeah.
seeing them again, and they've often said it was so. Usually by the fourth of the 8 week,
Hmm.
I'll get, oh my gosh, Tina, I just started spontaneously painting in oils and I've never done that. And here's a copy, and they'll email it to me. And then I just love that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I'm not ignoring the fact that, you know, you've heard of people talking about embodiment practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everything is connected, right? The spiritual, the creative, and even emotional pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what this class has done, is merging all of it. So there are journal questions that address emotional struggles that prevent us from moving forward spiritually or creatively too. And so there was one student once. I'm going to tell you this funny story because
Please.
there's there's one woman, she came for the first class and then I didn't see her for the second one, and I'm like, what happened? And then I ran into her at the HEB grocery store.
Mm.
It was not an accident. These are no accidents. And I said, where were you for the second class? She goes, I thought it was a one class deal. I said, no, it's an 8 week. So she came back.
Ah.
And then that third class, I think it was, she said, she looked at me and she goes, I went through that tornado through San Antonio, that hit some of the streets, and
Mm.
it's pretty traumatizing to her at the time. I think it affected her home. And
Mm.
just going, and she said, I think I healed some of the tornado today after just that
Mm.
2 hours. And I
Mm.
was like, what can you, like, that's just like this amazing gift of just having this beautiful, safe space to kind of go inward and create. And then trauma gets healed.
Mm.
I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Right. Yeah. It goes, I mean, it's not, it's certainly not a small thing that this is, in a sense, life-changing, or it can be, right? It opens you to the opportunity, to the movement of the spirit to address those kind of deepest parts of ourselves, that may need healing, that may need expression, right? And
And so that happens just naturally. It's almost kind of like this icing on the cake,
mm-hmm.
which I love about that. There's also the element of your sharing with your peers. Part of the structure is you have a 10-minute share, and you can share anything you want. There's no forced share of anything.
Mm-hmm.
You could just share, here's my collage, and just
Mm-hmm.
say, see this picture. And
Mm-hmm.
in the doing of that, all of a sudden words come, right? And you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't believe I just said that, right? Or you could share a poem you wrote or a journal writing with that person. But there's a sense of you're using other parts of your body to integrate what happened, what you just,
Mm-hmm.
and so that works the other side of the brain. It rewires you. It's just, and the best part of it, since the pandemic, since we used to be an in-person only experience, you meet people from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever decides for the class, and so it's very rich. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rich experience. You meet someone new, hopefully, usually someone new every week. We try to work with the breakout rooms so that that happens. And yeah, some people just find, and it doesn't matter where they're at in their journey. And this is
Mm-hmm.
the other beauty that I have seen, even as I was a little, walking around the room back in the day, at Alblate, when I would, just overhear some of the shares. There was a sense of something still gets transmitted between the other person.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is maybe in more of an emotional place, or somebody is in more of a creative space, uh, it doesn't matter where you're at in your journey. There's something beautiful that happens with the shares that I think just really ties things together.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I mean, that sounds like an incredible experience that's available. A bit more of a practical question, right? For those who are interested in registering, for those who are interested in signing up, what can they plan to bring to the experience, right? Both literally and figuratively, do they need materials? What is it that they ought to have in mind as they're preparing to join this course?
I have a little supply list that I
Mhm.
have on, if you go click on the link to register, you'll see that. But so basically, I think the main things that I personally like are something that are multicultural imagery,
Mm,
like National Geographics.
mm,
There are also something called We Moon catalogs, and there are women created artists and writings
mm,
that are really rich and very archetypal. And
mm,
but it doesn't have to be those two. Something like that feeds you. That maybe you're like, oh my God, I'm so drawn to these images, this magazine, or there's somebody talked about the Sun magazine, which had black and white photographs and some beautiful writings. So it's a little deeper magazine than
mm,
just a regular one. Although I'll tell you, when it comes to cutting out words, I've found it in the most interesting, most dry business journals you could ever imagine that have the best poetry. Poetry has come from that. So
mm,
anything you're to, if you're just kind of like, oh my God, there's something at the local thrift store and I see it and I just have to have it, and they're like 25 cents each, go for it.
mm,
Maybe there's photographs from your past. Maybe you're grieving someone who you really care about, and you maybe do color or black and white copy of those photographs and bring those. Or things from nature, like dried flowers or leaves or things like that, um, that you can use. Of course, we use glue
mm,
sticks. You can use glue for the bigger, items, because sometimes maybe you're going to go 3D. I don't know.
mm.
So color paper, color tissue paper. I like paint chips colors if you're at the home improvement store. And that's kind of a fun exercise just to bring color and to
Mm,
just say, oh my God, I just like that color and that color and that color. And that me as an artist, I still get excited about that.
right.
So just whatever inspires you or pulls you. It doesn't have to be beautiful, because
Mm,
it could be, as in the Jungian shadow world, we say what pulls you in from you, and that could be a deeper part of you that's saying, we're going to talk about. Example, I had a mother and daughter once do a private multi-week series of collage with me,
mm,
and she ended up kept picking pictures of wedding wedding pictures, like of other people, and she had a previous relationship, her previous marriage, that had some unresolved issues that she
mm,
didn't expect to go and explore. But I
right.
think there was this sense of, it brings it out. Like when you share, it comes out of you. You're not carrying it in your body anymore. This is where the embodiment comes in. Or you put it on a piece of paper and you can look at it, and suddenly it's not hidden anymore.
Mm,
So she
mm,
could deal with it and talk about maybe a tender moment or memory. And again, you don't have to share. There's no pressure to share anything
mm,
that's too deep. You can share that with your own counselor or spiritual director. But there's this opportunity to put it somewhere.
mm,
And she felt a lot freer and lighter after doing it. It was a really beautiful thing. And the initial reason was she wanted to do it for her daughter, and she ended up getting that piece out of it.
mm.
So
Beautiful.
anything that inspires you, anything that pulls you at all. Does that make sense? Glue sticks,
Yeah,
glue, any kind of thing.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, and it's just
even week to week, you're like, oh my
mm,
gosh, like I just saw something and it's like, pick me up. And then you have to do it, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I mean, I think that perfectly illustrates how this, I mean, just the whole experience of these 8 weeks can cultivate in you this newfound awareness, mindfulness, connection to the world around you, because suddenly you're noticing these things, right? And how they're speaking to you spiritually and then bringing
totally.
them to the group.
It's all about awareness
Mm,
and becoming still and know, right?
mm,
Still and
mm,
know within you. and pausing and stepping back. We all need help with that.
Mm-hmm.
I have also worked a lot with people in their minds, and they get really stuck in a sliver of the mind that just gets repetitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the other positive of doing a collage is get outside of words and put images only, and then you realize that maybe there is a dark piece that you're struggling with in your spiritual life or your creativity, or just in life in general. But the whole picture of the collage, 3/4 of it might not be. So then it offers you the opportunity to say, here's a bigger picture of what's happening. What my little mind is so loud about that makes me think this is all that's going on, when it's really this that's going on. So it opens up your perspective in a beautiful way to get out of a negative mindset.
Wow.
I know. It goes on and on. I mean, there was another memory I had, and this was the in-person collage class. I had one National Geographic map of California. I think it was San Francisco or something. I don't know. It was like people donated things over the years, you know, like, hey, Tina, you can use this for your collage class. But that was the only map I had left. And one woman picked it up, and later on during the group share, because we usually end with a short group share, she said, I picked up that map, and sure enough, the street I lived on way back was on the map, and I put it in my collage. And I'm thinking, okay, what are the chances of this really happening? Probability and scientifically. Right. And I'm always just amazed. I'm always waiting for the surprise ahas or the connections that are way bigger than me. And what I've put together, I get to be at the front row seat to this magic, and I'm just always like, I'm humbled by it. I'm always excited to do that, because it was just what she needed, right? I didn't know that, but somebody knew that. So it's pretty cool stuff like that. So I mean, I have stories and stories like this.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. I mean, you said you get to have a front row seat to that magic. I think that's a front row seat that plenty of people would be eager to have. So I want to, start closing out by again thanking you for this time. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's certainly gotten me excited for this series. I hope that
there's room for you, Antonio.
Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts, any encouragements, anything that you'd like to leave our audience before we say goodbye?
Just, if you have been feeling stuck, and most people have at different stages, not judge that. I think that's actually a natural part of our journey, and we often judge it, right? That's when that little piece of the mind comes in and goes, why haven't I figured this out yet? Or, and it's an invitation by the spirit within you to come and slow down and listen to something else that you've been ignoring. Because even if it's emotionally or otherwise, if we ignore a part of ourselves, it's still calling for some resolution or for some redirection. So if that's the case for you, give it a little bit of attention, even the shadow parts, and something beautiful will come out of that. We often talk a lot about what's outside of us, like God outside of us, but God is within us. It's this alchemical process inside your heart. And the more we redirect inward in different ways, being this way, it gives you a chance to really get to know yourself better. And in our fast-paced world, that's hard to do. So give yourself that gift. If this feels and resonates with you, I'm happy to have you join us.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this conversation has inspired you to explore your creativity and deepen your spiritual journey through Tina's upcoming Art and Prayer Spiritual Connection Through Collage workshop. The workshop runs Thursdays, September 5th through October 24th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time. The workshop's priced at $185 and spaces are limited. So be sure, please, to reserve your spot soon. You can sign up by visiting the OST website at ost.edu, selecting the Events tab, or you can find us on Eventbrite. We're excited to see you there. Thanks again for watching. I'm Antonio Fritzi, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.